It's 3 in the morning. You're lying in bed. The room is dark. The ceiling is quiet. Your brain is supposedly switched off. Then the cell phone flashes, a notification. Small, harmless, just a point of light in the corner of the screen. And you, who were literally 30 seconds away from falling asleep, unlock the screen, open the app, read a completely irrelevant message from a WhatsApp group that you clearly should have muted in 2018, give an awkward laugh, put the phone back, stare at the ceiling for another 40 minutes, and wake up the next day completely exhausted. Be honest, that was yesterday. And look, you're not weak. You don't lack discipline. You're not addicted to technology in the dramatic Netflix documentary movie sense. You've simply been trained, very competent, by people who studied for years to do exactly that. And best of all, you paid for the equipment they used to train you. Welcome to the dopamine effect of notification. Let's start from the beginning, because this is more serious than it seems and funnier than it should be. There's a scientist named Boris Frederick Skinner, a behavioral psychologist. He became famous in the 1950s for putting pigeons and rats in boxes and studying how they learned to press levers to receive food. What he discovered was this: if you give food every time the animal presses the lever, it learns quickly and stops pressing with such intensity. But if you give food randomly, sometimes yes, sometimes no, without any pattern, the animal becomes obsessed. It keeps pressing the lever non-stop, with frantic intensity, waiting for the reward that could arrive at any moment. This pattern is called intermittent variable reinforcement, and that's exactly what happens every time you open a notification. Sometimes it's something important. Sometimes it's a mattress advertisement. Sometimes it's a picture of your cousin's dog. Sometimes it's an answer you've been waiting for. The brain doesn't know what it will find, and it's precisely this uncertainty that releases dopamine, not the reward itself, the possibility of the reward. It's like a scratch-off lottery ticket. Nobody gets addicted to scratch-off tickets because they always win. You get addicted because you can win. Think about it for a second. You don't check your phone because you're expecting an urgent message. You check it because your brain has been conditioned to anticipate that there might be something interesting on it. And that might be is enough to release a small but sufficient amount of dopamine to make you repeat the behavior automatically, involuntarily, and completely without purpose. This is literally Skinner's pigeon learning mechanism, except you have an iPhone and the pigeon had a wooden box. The difference is that the pigeon didn't pay for a data plan. Now comes the part that tech companies would love for you not to know. This was no accident. This was design. There's a field called persuasive design, and the EEE professionals who work in this area have a single mission: to make you use the app for as long as possible, in the most involuntary way possible, in the most emotionally dependent way possible. The notification sound was tested. The vibration was calibrated. The red icon with the number was chosen because red is the color the human brain associates with urgency, danger, and something that needs immediate attention. It wasn't the designer having a creative crisis. It was him knowing exactly what he was doing. And there's more. The infinite feed, the one you keep scrolling down endlessly, was inspired by Las Vegas slot machines. It's not a metaphor. The creator of the infinite scrolling mechanism himself, a designer named Asa Raskin, publicly admitted this, and he said he regrets inventing it. He estimated that the feature generates about 200,000 hours of unnecessary use per day worldwide. 200,000 hours a day of people scrolling down waiting for the next piece of content, as if something revolutionary would appear after a picture of someone's lunch that you barely know. It's like pulling the lever on a slot machine in slow motion, but instead of losing money, you lose time, attention, focus, and the ability to tolerate boredom. And you know what's worse? Tolerance for boredom is basically the muscle responsible for creativity, deep thinking, long-term planning, and the ability to stay present in a conversation without checking your phone every 3 minutes. In other words, the time you spend endlessly scrolling isn't just wasted time. It's time that's actively deteriorating the skills you need to be better at work, in relationships, and in your financial life. But let's get back to the money, because that's where it gets painfully interesting. Have you ever noticed that the moments of greatest impulsive online shopping happen exactly when you're bored, stressed, or in a pointless scrolling loop? It's no coincidence. When the brain is in a low dopamine state, which is the state you're in after hours of superficial stimulation, it's desperately searching for a spike. And buying something provides that spike. Clicking the Buy Now button is a Skinner lever with a 30% discount and free shipping. And the platforms know this. The advertising algorithms are calibrated to find you in exactly that state. When you're in your 30th minute of aimless scrolling, vulnerable, bored, with your judgment slightly impaired by accumulated cognitive fatigue, that's when the ad appears, not before, after, when you're already relaxed. Think about it carefully. You think you're making a purchase decision, but in reality, you're at the end of a process that started with a notification at 3 in the morning, continued with morning scrolling in the bathroom, went through the noisy WhatsApp group, climbed up the Instagram social comparison feed, and culminated in a purchase you didn't need, that you'll use 3 times, that will sit in a corner, and that will generate a slight sense of financial guilt that you'll resolve by doing what? Opening your phone again. The cycle closes on its own. And the truly brilliant part, from a cynical and utterly disturbing design standpoint, is that you'll associate the emotional relief with the very device that created the discomfort. The cell phone generated anxiety. The cell phone offered the solution. The cell phone is both the problem and the drug at the same time. It's as if the dealer lived in your pocket and sent you good morning messages every day. Now, what do you do with this information? Nothing dramatic. No throwing your phone out the window or moving to a farm with no signal. Just a few surgical adjustments that, together, change quite a lot. First, disable all notifications that don't require an immediate response, and be honest with yourself about what truly requires an immediate response. Spoiler alert, it's less than you think. Corporate email isn't an emergency. App updates aren't an emergency. Flash sales aren't an emergency. An emergency is someone calling you because something actually happened. Second, set specific times to check non-urgent messages. Twice a day is sufficient for 90% of situations in 90% of people's lives. You're not an on-call surgeon. You can wait. Third, when you feel the urge to pick up your phone for no reason, recognize the urge for what it is. Your brain craving dopamine because it's bored. And instead of feeding the cycle, replace it with something that produces quality dopamine. A 10-minute walk, a small task completed, a real conversation with someone in the same room. Your brain won't like it at first. It will protest. It will generate that slight feeling of anxiety you get when you forget your cell phone somewhere. But that feeling isn't a sign of danger. It's a sign of withdrawal, which in itself should tell you something about the relationship you've developed with a rectangle of glass and aluminum. If you enjoy seeing how these mechanisms work behind the scenes, you know where to start. And in the end, you can look at all this and think, but it's just a notification, what an exaggeration. Or you can look at your phone usage history, that weekly report you ignore because the numbers make you uncomfortable, and come to terms with the fact that you, an intelligent, capable, and functional person, spent more hours this week scrolling than sleeping. But hey, at least the WhatsApp group was lively.